Hey guys.
Thanks for stopping by. Today, we are going to talk about some huge tiny house news.
Da-da-da.
Do you want to tour tiny houses and possibly meet Zack Giffin of Tiny House Nation?
Maybe.
Stick around to find out more. And if you don't know us, I'm Alexis.
And I'm Christian, and we are Tiny House Expedition.
Like it says right there. We are also the creators of the docuseries Living Tiny Legally, which you can check out on our channel. See the link above and below. That's going to let you know all the legal obstacles to tiny house living, but most importantly, how those are being overcome. Also, we're tiny house dwellers.
Mm-hmm. Though we're not in our tiny house right now, we're still in North Carolina helping my mom get the house ready to sell.
Yep, and we're almost there.
Almost done. This wall's nicely painted, isn't it?
It is. So on our channel, we bring you tiny house and travel inspiration, advocacy news, and tools to help you achieve your dreams of creating a more fulfilling life and home. And that's what we're here to do today.
Mm-hmm.
So are you ready for some huge tiny house movement news?
Really big news. You ready? You ready?
All right. As we said, tiny houses are going to DC. They're going to be featured in the Innovative Housing Showcase that's happening June 1st through the 5th on the National Mall. It's free and open to the public.
Totally free. So if you're close by or going to visit DC, you should totally come.
Yes, and you are going to be able to see some exhibits, demos, and hear speakers, including our buddy, Zack Giffin.
Mm-hmm.
So the housing showcase is co-hosted by HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, as well as the National Builders Association. And the idea behind it is it's a chance to focus on affordable, resilient housing solutions that can help create more housing stock that's needed and options for things like what happens when there's a national disaster and people lose their homes. How can we quickly respond to that? And we're thrilled to tell you how much that tiny houses are going to be included.
I just noticed the house going across the screen. That's great.
Because this means national exposure, legitimization on a big scale. And in addition to being open to the public, members of local, state, and federal government are going to be attending to learn about these solutions. One of the houses that's going to be available is from our good friends, Build Us Hope, who are bringing Big Blue, as you can see here.
Yeah.
It is indeed big.
Yeah,
and blue.
Yeah.
It's a 32-foot tiny house on wheels. You can see it's triple axle, and it features 3 bedrooms. While we don't have more pictures right now, we're going to be doing a live tour there next Tuesday, so be sure to stop back by to see that and to see what else is happening at the housing showcase. So when we talk about tiny houses, in this case, and that are going to be represented at the festival, or at the showcase rather, it's going to include all kinds of tiny houses, from those on foundation to those that can be moved, like houses built on skids, or tiny houses on wheels. So by being featured in the showcase, tiny houses are further being legitimized as an innovative solution to a wide range of housing needs. This is our opportunity to speak directly to policymakers to give them a greater understanding and appreciation for these uses. So we're talking like affordable housing, transitional housing, more sustainable options, and most importantly, an option that can be permanent, that can be well-built, long-term, beautiful, durable, and they can be put just about anywhere. that's what's so crazy about these. What's really special about this occasion is a critical mass of inspiring tiny home initiatives around the country, dedicated local advocates, and a growing number, including us and you, who've embraced, or a lot of you who've embraced this lifestyle, have created a critical mass that's being recognized on the federal level of our government. HUD took notice, and that's why they're including tiny houses in this showcase. And what's cool is it's not just for HUD, HUD specific standards. It's for all kinds of housing and all kinds of situations built to various building standards that are out there. And I am incredibly honored. I'm incredibly honored to be a featured panelist on a tiny house panel representing the movement with inspiring leaders like our good friend Elizabeth Singleton, the director and founder of Build Us Hope, Andrew Bennett, the founder of Core Housing Solutions, and the moderator, the amazing Zack Giffin, co-host of Tiny House Nation, who's also the program director for Operation Tiny Home, which is one of our top favorite nonprofits in the movement. So we all get to talk to you guys and to policymakers about why they should care about tiny houses. And there's lots of reasons why we care about them. As you know, we are the super nerds.
Yeah, we are.
But what would you want policymakers to know about tiny houses if you had the opportunity? Let us know.
That's a good question.
I know a huge thing that we want them to know is tiny houses are a fill in the gaps housing solution, right? They're not the end all be all of housing, right? There's lots of different options out there that are worthwhile and that fit different needs. But tiny houses can be put into situations that other housing can't, like our favorite, backyards.
Mm-hmm.
A tiny house as an ADU is so practical.
It absolutely is. It's one of those things that can happen very quickly, So there's a lot of backyards out there that have enough room for a tiny house. So it's something that could happen sooner than later.
And there's so much to be said for that, especially right now where so many places are experiencing a housing crisis, where there's just not enough available houses and certainly not enough affordable houses. And of course, this varies from place to place. But if I was to share something, especially on like a federal level, about what policymakers can do to support tiny homes and the tiny house movement, is to enact a couple simple, straightforward policies. I'm not talking about overly complicated regulations, but one would be simple as, hey, guess what? Cities, states, counties, in no particular order, you cannot discriminate against tiny houses, the placement and the use of tiny houses in a way that you wouldn't other kinds of housing. Because we are seeing that in some cases where advocates are going and to say, hey, can we get tiny houses here? And here's the research we've done, and here's how we want to do it. Some of these municipalities are creating like excessive hoops for people to jump through, because they don't want something with a low tax base or a small size to affect other property values. Is there some validity to these concerns? Maybe. But I think if you're trying to address a need, you should maybe overlook or try to see that from a different perspective. So the bottom line is, don't discriminate against this housing option like you would if you wouldn't for another. Mm-hmm. And do you know what's cool? Did you know this?
What?
The new Washington state bill for tiny houses includes protections against discriminations.
Oh, sweet.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
So it's, it's not like the discrimination won't continue, but, I could feel someone typing that right now, but what it does is it makes a strong statement. And if someone wanted to fight against something that was, what they deem discrimination, they could, to create acceptance for tiny houses. The other big thing, like Christian mentioned, because tiny houses on wheels particularly could be so easily placed in backyards, what about creating some kind of policy that strongly encourages cities to allow this by right with some basic safety standards?
Yeah. Yeah, because it really is all about health and safety. You know, your city or your town actually just wants you to be safe living in your dwelling. So that's why all
And the
these
people around you.
and the people around you. Yeah, when people come to visit, they want them to be safe too. So
Well, and the neighbors.
right. But that's why they have all these safety standards. So, you know, with a tiny house with proper safety standards can be an absolutely legal dwelling to, you know, put, like Alexis said, in a backyard or on a piece of property.
Yeah, or as urban infill on like vacant lots, which, you know, every city owns odd-shaped lots that they would deem unbuildable because of the size and they can't meet traditional setbacks. But a tiny house is different, right? You could add value by putting the small-scale home on this property, either short-term or long-term, to fill some kind of temporary or long-term need. Feels like a no-brainer.
It does. It totally does.
And I feel like, speaking of that no-brainer thing, some of this stuff isn't rocket science, but it is something that we have to point out to people, to general public, neighbors, and especially policymakers to say, hey, you know, there's so much talk about creating more affordable housing and not a lot of action, or the action's incredibly expensive. You know, here's a lower cost way to do it. And individuals like ourselves are creating their own affordable housing solution, you know, which is so American. People are bootstrapping their needs, but a little bit of help, a little bit of support could go a really long way.
Yeah, totally.
So if you had the chance to talk to a policymaker, what would you let him know about tiny houses? How would you make your argument? Leave a comment in the live chat now or below, and we'll try to address as many of those as we can. What are some of the comments coming in right now?
I'm reading them right now. Well, our friend Peggy, hey Peggy, you know, she's interested in putting a tiny house permanently on a piece of land in Pennsylvania. That's what she would love to do.
Oh, great. Oh, I have some excellent news for you, Peggy. Lancaster County has this fabulous tiny house planning document. Basically, if you look up tiny houses Lancaster County, you're going to find a link to this PDF. I'll put it below. And it's going to outline how you can approach your municipality to place a tiny home. A local builder collaborated with the county to create like a simple, straightforward guide. It doesn't mean it's already allowed everywhere, but they kind of lay a really good groundwork. And in the short term, before you bought your own piece of property, and even before you built or bought a tiny house, go to Tiny Estates.
Yeah, that's great. Tiny Estates is an awesome place to go and check out a bunch of different tiny houses of all different sizes.
It's a resort community which has a huge collection of short-term rentals, but also has a long-term section. So it could be another option for you, Peggy.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. We had another question about, well, what this gentleman would like. Life and Times has no restrictions, is what I would ask for. To do rainwater use, solar, off-grid, why not?
Well, I think you raise a really good point, especially if you own the land or a group of people own the land. Why not be able to do whatever we want? It's our property, and there's a lot to be said for that, especially some of the things that you're talking about, off-grid power and water solutions. Makes a lot of sense. I think in some areas are more friendly to that, some aren't, and there's pushback for a couple of reasons. One is, money is a factor, and that utilities and utility hookups do help keep things going. Is that a good excuse? Maybe not. Public safety can be a factor for some things, like like manure composting.
Right. Yeah. Because if you're going to be off grid, what that means is, getting your own alternative power, depending on where you live, you said something about rain catchment. Yeah, that's possible. But when you have, a tiny house roof, if it rains hard, you'll get a lot of water. But it
can be
can
built
be few
externally,
and, yeah, it can be few and far between, having rain catchment systems. So you more than likely have to dig a well, and however you get power, however you figure that out is good. But yeah, when it comes down, it all just comes down to the health and safety stuff.
Right.
If doing completely or almost completely off grid can really happen, but I think you have to prove to a city or a town that the health and safety, the people that are going to live there are going to be safe.
But I think you raised a good point, and where I think no restrictions might not be a completely realistic goal, but loosening restrictions on what people are allowed to do on their own land, I think there is some value to that. So thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, and there's one more that this woman Heather, hello Heather. I've been trying for a year to get the town of Heber City in Utah.
Oh,
we know that.
We know Utah.
Yes, we know Heber, and just to talk about alternative housing. Our minimum square footage laws to build a home are 900 square feet.
Wow.
Yeah. So why do I have to live in such a large home?
Wow, that's crazy. Oh my gosh, that's a pet peeve. 900. So they're saying you can't build under 900 square feet. And it's what does 900 square feet have to do with safety?
Right.
And maybe a place, so of course my first reaction is, that's so irritating, but that's not helpful.
No. I know a little bit of the answer.
Okay.
And a little bit of the answer is for, as silly as it is for servicing things. So it's for the reason that there are minimum toilet, like spaces that the toilet needs to be, like, it's 15 inches away from either side wall and 21 inches in the front from another wall. The reason is so you can replace the toilet. So you can pull it out, put it back in, put a new one back in if it breaks. Same thing with a refrigerator, stove, all of those things.
Well, see, that's a good point. But 900 square feet isn't required for that. And in fact, in the newest versions of the International Residential Code, IRC, which most states and cities and counties follow, they have their minimum size for a habitable space is extremely small. And of course, we have the tiny house appendix where they have created a way to address homes built under 400 square feet, some of those challenges like he's saying.
Like I'm talking about, yeah.
So maybe a really good place to start would be asking, could you please explain to me why we have that minimum square footage standard? To meet my family's needs, we're thinking about a house smaller than that, but we're just trying to understand what that minimum requirement, what's the reason behind that. And what you could find is, depending on how receptive they are, you could find that you get someone who says, why is that the minimum standard? That could be your foot in the door for further conversation. If you haven't, I highly encourage you to watch Living Tiny Legally Part 1, which is on our channel, where a woman named Renee Hardy, who is one of our friends and a real advocate hero, she started a conversation very simply, a lot like I just described, and it led to some big zoning change. Well, I want to leave you with thinking about, if you had the opportunity to talk to policymakers, what would you say? We want to hear your thoughts. This could help inform what we share when we attend the Innovative Housing Showcase starting Saturday, and it runs through June 1st through June 5th.
Yes, so if you're up in the DC area, come up and check it out. It's going to be on the mall, so you'll be able to see the Capitol building right there at the end. So it'll be super cool.
It's going to be epic.
Yeah.
Come say hi. I'll put the details below. You can see us in the panel on Saturday. Me specifically, he'll be filming.
Yes. And unfortunately, we won't have our house there. I wish we could, because I want the pictures. I want the shots of the house with the Capitol, but unfortunately not this time.
At other times during the showcase, you can find us near the Build Us Hope tiny house exhibit. Come see Big Blue. Yep. It's a beauty. And tune in next Tuesday for a live tour, and stop by Thursday for a brand new edited tour of a very special tiny house from DC.
Yep. So thank you guys for coming and watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. And ring that little bell in the corner to get notifications when we are doing our lives.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy.